The Galactic Empire's scout ship Voracious Dawn slipped through the atmosphere of a small, unremarkable planet catalogued as Earth. The crew had grown lazy after decades of effortless subjugations. No alarms blared, no war preparations were made. This planet wasn't even armed with orbital defenses. It was classified as a developmental anomaly. Sentient, but quaint. An easy assignment for an empire that had grown fat and slow. Commander Velk, a towering reptilian being whose scales were polished to a mirror shine, regarded the blue and green landscape below with thinly disguised contempt. "We're only here because High Command wants trinkets for the museum," he sneered, flexing his clawed hands. "Make it quick." At the helm, the elderly navigator Joser, whose 4 eyes blinked asynchronously, nodded absently. Joser had seen 100 worlds burn, and cared little for the whims of the young and ambitious. Behind them, the newest recruit, Zilth, fidgeted, his antennae twitching nervously. A signal had been detected. A faint distress beacon, human in origin, screaming weakly from a dense forest. Standard procedure demanded investigation. A human life form, isolated and vulnerable, was the perfect specimen for capture and study. The Voracious Dawn touched down with mechanical grace, its hull shimmering under Earth's golden afternoon sun. The bay doors hissed open, releasing the crisp scent of pine and ozone into the sterile ship. The landing team formed a cautious line, their plasma rifles humming, though few expected resistance. They found her slumped against the wreckage of a small, battered escape pod. Earth technology, laughably crude. Sergeant Michelle Carter looked up as they approached, blinking against the sun, her military jumpsuit scorched and torn. Blood, rich, unmistakably human blood, matted her dark hair to her forehead. She coughed weakly but smiled. Velk laughed. "Pathetic," he said, nudging the human with the barrel of his rifle. Carter winced, shifting her body slightly, as if in pain. She raised both hands slowly, palms out. "I surrender," she said in a clear, steady voice, accent sharp and unmistakably American. "Please, take me to your leader." She smiled wider, teeth white against the blood on her lips. Zilth stared, wide-eyed. Is that sarcasm?" Velk ignored him. "Bag her. We'll dissect the brain first. Primitive minds are fascinating." He gestured lazily to the squad. Carter's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, then returned, serene, almost pitying. "You know back where I'm from," she said lightly. "We usually offer visitors coffee. Or pie. Shooting's considered rude." Without waiting for an answer, Velk raised his weapon and pulled the trigger. The blast struck Carter square in the chest. She crumpled without a sound, her body sprawling in the dirt. Smoke curled from the scorch mark on her uniform. Zilth gasped. "Was that necessary?" He whispered. Velk shrugged. "Mercy kill. She would have suffered anyway. Besides, she's just human." As the squad gathered around the corpse, weapons lowered in triumph, the air changed. It began subtly. A drop in temperature, a whisper at the edge of hearing. Joser straightened, his back ridges stiffening. "Something's wrong," he muttered. From the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged. She was an old woman, by human standards, wrapped in a battered cloak. Gray hair tangled around her lined face. Her presence was wrong, out of place, like a note sour in a symphony. She walked with slow, deliberate steps, her bare feet silent on the forest floor. Velk sneered. "Another primitive. Deal with her." No one moved. The woman's eyes, pale, almost colorless, locked onto them. She smiled, and the temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "I taught her," the woman said softly. Her voice, though barely above a whisper, carried like a cannon blast. "She was my student." Joser stumbled back a step. "Identify yourself," he barked, fear threading his voice. The woman tilted her head slightly, like a bird considering prey. "Some call me Baba Yaga." She smiled wider. "I am a teacher. A gardener. And you," her voice sharpened. "You have just uprooted one of my finest flowers." Velk recovered first. "I don't care what swamp you crawled from," he snapped. You're interfering with an authorized Imperial operation. Step aside or be terminated." Baba Yaga chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Oh, children. I am not interfering. I am beginning." Without warning, the old woman moved. She wasn't fast by human standards, she was faster. Before Velk could react, she was within his guard. A flash of steel, a wickedly curved blade, drawn from some hidden fold of her cloak, glinted once before it plunged into Velk's knee joint. The commander screamed, falling to the ground in a heap. Chaos erupted. Djoser fired wildly, bolts of plasma tearing through the air, but Baba Yaga weaved between them with impossible grace. She disarmed Djoser with a deft twist of her wrist, sending his rifle skittering into the bushes. Zilf dropped his weapon altogether and fled, crashing through the undergrowth, sobbing. In less than 60 seconds, the proud Empire landing team lay defeated, groaning, bleeding, or unconscious at the feet of a barefoot old woman. Baba Yaga stood amidst the wreckage, breathing steadily. She stooped to pick up Carter's body, cradling it with surprising gentleness. Her fingers brushed the soldier's temple, and for a moment, her lips moved in silent words. "To the remaining conscious aliens," she said, "you came to take what is ours. You thought us soft. Tame." She turned slowly, her voice rising with a terrifying certainty. "You have mistaken our mercy for frailty. You have mistaken our laughter for weakness. You have mistaken our culture for compliance." Baba Yaga's eyes gleamed. "You will tell your masters," she said. "Tell them humanity remembers its teachers. Tell them humanity buries its dead, and plants the seeds of vengeance." She walked forward, forcing the surviving scouts to scramble out of her way. None dared raise a weapon. She passed Zilf, who had frozen mid-escape, his weapon dangling uselessly in one hand. She paused. In a voice so kind it could have been mistaken for a grandmother's lullaby, she said, "Tell them we are coming." With that, she disappeared into the trees, leaving silence and the acrid stink of fear behind her. On board the Voracious Dawn, panic rippled through the remaining crew as fragmented reports poured in. Incoherent words: attack, impossible speed, casualties. An old woman? One human? The communications officer, young, bright, and terrified, patched the feed through to Central Command. Senior officials leaned in, expecting amusement, expecting proof of Earth's insignificance. They watched instead as Baba Yaga emerged on a blurry video feed, dragging one of the incapacitated scouts by the ankle. She smiled directly into the camera. "Hello, neighbors," she said. "You killed my student. You shot without honor. No parley. No respect." Her fingers tightened, and the camera feed cut out with a wet snap. There was a long, frozen silence in the Empire's war rooms. Someone coughed. Somewhere, an aide dropped a data slate. An admiral leaned forward, squinting at the last frozen frame. Baba Yaga's toothy smile, Carter's limp form resting protectively beside her. He muttered, Is that what humans call a witch?" No one answered. Far below, on Earth's forest floor, Baba Yaga moved through the trees like smoke, Carter's body slung carefully across her shoulders. The old woman did not hurry. She knew she had already won the first battle. Behind her, the wrecked Empire team slowly, agonizingly, gathered their wounded. In their ears, the old woman's promise echoed louder than any scream. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the storm on the horizon, the dark thing under the bed, the monster behind the mask of smiles and warm welcomes. And it had just noticed the stars. In the depths of the forest, Baba Yaga began to hum a lullaby, an ancient tune, full of sorrow and warning. A song that had once comforted children hiding from wolves. A song now carried by the wind into the terrified ears of creatures who thought themselves conquerors. The melody promised one thing: retribution. A single flare streaked into the sky, Earth's signal to any others watching. "Come closer," the Earth seemed to whisper. "See if you can survive the smiling monsters that call themselves human." The game had begun. The voracious dawn stank of fear. It was subtle at first, an undercurrent below the mechanical hum of systems and the sterile scent of recycled air. But it grew with every passing moment. Whispers spread through the halls like cracks in glass. Veterans who had fought the Skrull incursions, who had survived the burning of Triangula V, now huddled in corners and clutched their weapons like children with nightlights. Commander Velk, bloodied and limping, was carried into the infirmary, cursing and roaring in fury, but even his voice trembled. Medics swarmed around him, their hands slick with green antiseptic foam, but their eyes kept darting toward the sealed hatch that led back to the surface. She moved like a spectral unit, Velk snapped as a medic ran a scanner over his ruined knee. No biological entity should be capable of that. He hissed when the scanner beeped a low, somber tone. Joint destroyed. You'll need replacement cybernetics, the medic said blandly, avoiding the commander's gaze. Velk clenched his fists. He had been humiliated. No, worse. He had been studied. The old woman's gaze had not just looked at him. It had measured him, judged him, and found him wanting. Joser, still shaking, found himself in a meeting room with the ship's officers, many of whom had only just awakened to the new danger facing them. They replayed the footage in a grim loop. There she was, Baba Yaga. A smile full of warm malice. A body that moved like a story children told each other to make the dark seem farther away. It wasn't just the violence. It was the precision. The way she had crippled, not killed. The way she had spoken after each blow, not out of malice, but instruction, as if teaching them a lesson they would be very slow to forget. I suggest full planetary quarantine, Joser said hoarsely, adjusting the translation device strapped across his narrow throat. Earth may not be what we thought it was. You're suggesting a Class 5 threat level? Someone asked incredulously. Class 5? Joser barked a bitter laugh. Class 5 is for civilizations that can fight back. Earth is something else. Something that waits for the fight. Across the ship, in a sealed interrogation room, Zilth sat alone, trembling. The debrief had not gone well. Every question about the encounter only made him more panicked, his answers more frantic. She smiled when we shot her. He had cried. The old one, she smiled too. They weren't afraid. They wanted us to react. The interrogators, professional, unimpressed, traded glances behind mirrored visors. To them, Ziltha's panic seemed like cowardice. Only the older officer, grizzled and lined from too many campaigns, seemed troubled. He leaned forward across the table. What were her exact words? He asked quietly. Zilth shivered. Tell them we are coming, he whispered. The officer leaned back, silent for a long time. In the command center, Velk, now bolted into a wheeled exoframe to support his ruined leg, barked at the comms team. Open a channel to Empire Command. Priority 1 emergency. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a stern Imperial admiral, her uniform immaculate, her expression one of practiced boredom. Velk forced himself to remain calm, even as rage boiled under his scales. Status update, Commander? Velk straightened. First contact hostile. Severe casualties. Request immediate reinforcements. The Admiral arched an elegant eyebrow. From primitives? Velk clenched his jaw until it creaked. Respectfully, Admiral, Earth's designation as a non-threat is incorrect. The species displays deceptive friendliness masking extreme tactical aggression. The Admiral frowned faintly, tapping a stylus against her palm. Are you suggesting they deceived our sensors, our cultural analysts, and our strategic AI? Velk hesitated. He hated the words before they even left his tongue. Yes, Admiral. I am. There was a pause. Then, in a voice as dry as ancient dust, the Admiral said, Prepare full environmental scans. We will re-evaluate. The transmission cut. Velk sagged slightly, gripping the edges of his chair. He had expected ridicule, perhaps punishment for incompetence. But re-evaluation meant something worse. Empire Command was listening. And that meant they were afraid. On Earth, under a canopy of dying light, Baba Yaga buried Michelle Carter. The ground was soft, still breathing with the heat of the day. She worked methodically, humming under her breath. As she placed the final stone atop the shallow grave, she stood in silence, gazing up at the sky where the voracious dawn floated unseen. Rest easy, child, she murmured. You've done your part. Behind her, a shadow detached from the trees. Another human soldier, clad in a ghillie suit woven from living vines, approached. His face was painted in streaks of earth and ash. Are they scared yet? He asked. Baba Yaga's smile was thin and sharp. They will be. The soldier crouched beside the grave, touching 2 fingers to the stone in silent salute. Phase 2? He asked. Baba Yaga nodded. Above them, a second flare rose into the sky, pulsing crimson and gold. On board the Voracious Dawn, alarms blared. New energy signature, cried the sensor officer. Unknown origin. Velk barked for a visual. The view screen shifted, displaying the twin flares, like eyes glaring from the forest below. Before Velk could issue orders, the flares exploded into a spreading mist, a shimmering cloud that rose unnaturally into the upper atmosphere. Biochemical agent? Joser guessed, horrified. No, said the sensor tech, voice cracking. It's data. The mist coalesced into a massive symbol, burning bright against the darkening sky, an image of a human skull wrapped in vines. Below it, words in ancient Terran glyphs blazed into view. Smile. You're on Earth now. Silence fell. Zilth, watching from the brig, whispered. They planned this. Back in the Empire's High Council chambers, the image transmitted live. The delegates, beings of 1,000 worlds, watched with growing dread. This was not a random survivor, said a voice. This was a message, said another. In the forests of Earth, humans stirred. Not soldiers in the traditional sense, not armies in formation, but cells. Individuals. Hunters. They wore smiles like armor and moved like whispered rumors. They carried weapons cobbled together from scraps, yet deadlier than precision instruments. And they waited, patient as stones. Baba Yaga walked among them, her cloak trailing in the dust. Politeness, she instructed a group of young fighters clustered around a makeshift map, is the weapon of kings and killers. She tapped the map sharply. Always let them believe you are kind, until it is time to be something else. The recruits laughed quietly, the sound dry and knowing. Across the galaxy, the Empire's finest minds worked feverishly to analyze the footage, dissect every word, every gesture. They found patterns. Smiles before violence. Offers of peace before ambush. Formality before annihilation. In the command center of the Voracious Dawn, Velk ordered every available sensor focused on the forest. Thermal readings. Biometric scans. Deep resonance sweeps. Each return was the same. Too quiet. No armies massing. No tanks rolling. No energy weapons charging. Just silence. And smiling faces. The Voracious Dawn's captain of security, a thick-shelled Thorin named Grax, demanded a strike. Orbital bombardment. Cleanse the infestation. Velk hesitated. He knew command would expect him to demonstrate control, not panic. But his gut, scarred from countless campaigns, twisted with doubt. He looked again at the feed. At the tiny, ancient woman standing in a clearing, waving up at them cheerily. And he hesitated. Hesitation became terror. From the edge of the clearing, a barrage of crude projectiles erupted upward. Harpoons fashioned from rebar and engine parts, chains weighted with repurposed fusion cores. The Voracious Dawn's lower hull groaned as impacts rocked it, alarms shrieking. They're dragging us down, screamed the pilot. Impossible. Primitive species didn't drag ships from the sky. Yet the Voracious Dawn shuddered again, lurching toward the ground. Velk gripped his console, snarling. Full power to repulsors. Break free. The engines roared, fighting against the pull, but the harpoons had burrowed deep, carried by mechanisms older than the Empire itself. Gravity, leverage, and ruthlessness. Below, humans swarmed. Tiny figures with fierce eyes and fearless smiles. Velk's last coherent thought before the ship tilted into a crash trajectory was not of glory, nor survival. It was of the woman's voice, calm and inexorable. Tell them we are coming. The Voracious Dawn slammed into the forest with the force of a falling god. The explosion was visible for hundreds of miles. In the settling dust, survivors stumbled from the wreckage. Weapons raised, they formed ragged defensive lines, expecting waves of human attackers. None came. Instead, from the shadows, came a voice. It was gentle. Almost kind. "Welcome to Earth." Baba Yaga stepped into the ruins, her hands empty, her expression beatific. Behind her the trees shifted, revealing dozens, no, hundreds of human fighters. Men. Women. Children. All smiling. All patient. The Empire soldiers opened fire instinctively, panic sharpening their aim. The humans did not flinch. They moved through the chaos with terrible calm, dodging plasma bolts, weaving between blasts, striking only when needed, clean, efficient blows that disarmed rather than killed. Within minutes, it was over. The surviving Empire soldiers were bound, stripped of weapons, herded into a circle beneath the cracked hull of their mighty ship. Baba Yaga stood before them, hands clasped like a benevolent matron. "You sought to conquer," she said softly. "To enslave. To dissect." She paused, surveying their battered, broken faces. "We seek only to teach." One of the soldiers, a bold one, spat at her feet. Baba Yaga smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You have been taught your first lesson," she said. "Courtesy matters." She gestured, and the prisoners were dragged to their feet, marched deeper into the forest where the trees grew thick and the shadows grew thicker still. From the shattered bridge of the voracious dawn, a final transmission pulsed weakly into the void, broadcasting one desperate warning. "Humans are not what we thought. They are worse. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." But it was too late. Far beyond Earth's gravity, in the glittering halls of Empire Command, the wheels of war had already begun to turn. And humanity, smiling as always, was ready. The prisoners were marched deeper into the forest, the towering trees closing in overhead like the ribs of some ancient beast. Above, the sky faded from bruised purple to a black velvet littered with stars. The Empire soldiers stumbled, their boots catching on roots and loose stones, but their guards, the humans, moved like shadows, smiling still. At the center of a wide clearing stood a structure, hastily built yet precise, gleaming with a polished cruelty. It was a simple scaffold, fashioned from parts of the voracious dawn's wreckage and local materials. Metal beams twisted into functional platforms. Wiring hung like vines, humming faintly with stolen energy. Spotlights scavenged from the ship flickered to life, casting the scene in a sterile white glare. Baba Yaga stood at the heart of it all, arms folded, her expression unreadable. The prisoners were forced to kneel before her, their bindings humming with stunned charges. A few glared in defiance, but most hung their heads, beaten both in body and spirit. "You are very lucky," Baba Yaga said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the night air. "Most conquerors are not afforded the courtesy of instruction before their defeat." One of the soldiers, a hulking lizard-like being named Sreth, snarled. "This is a violation of the Concordat. Prisoners have rights." Baba Yaga's eyes crinkled in amusement. "Ah yes. Rights. The same rights your commander invoked when he ordered my student shot like an animal." She clicked her tongue. How curious that mercy is only remembered when the tables turn. A murmur rippled through the human ranks, a low tide of dry laughter. Behind Baba Yaga, a figure stepped forward. Sergeant Carter. Alive. The Empire soldiers recoiled instinctively. Carter's uniform was still torn and scorched, but the blood had been cleaned away. A crude brace supported her left arm. Her eyes, bright and very much alive, swept the gathered prisoners. "You expected an easy kill," Carter said, her voice hard as iron. "You thought you'd catch a fish. Instead, you walked straight into a shark tank." The realization dawned slowly, painfully. The crash had been no accident. The beacon had been no cry for help. It had been bait. Baba Yaga let the silence stretch before speaking again. "You are the first catch in a very large net. And soon, your masters will feel the pull." From the treeline, more humans emerged. Engineers, hackers, saboteurs, dragging crates of alien tech and data cores looted from the wrecked ship. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up portable transmitters, recalibrating frequencies. Within minutes, the scaffold became an impromptu command post. A heavy-set human in an oil-stained jacket handed Baba Yaga a tablet displaying a rapidly scrolling set of alien communications. "They're listening," he said with a grin. "Good," Baba Yaga replied. On a distant moon orbiting a gas giant, an Empire relay station intercepted the transmission. It was faint, almost playful. "To whom it may concern," said a cheerful voice, heavy with American twang. "Congratulations! You've officially found yourselves in a hostile takeover." The transmission continued, mixing human humor with terrifying clarity. "Your scouting party is alive. For now, we invite you to parley. Bring cake. Or don't. Your choice." The Empire officials who heard it turned various shades of green and gray. Back in the forest, Carter and Baba Yaga moved among the prisoners, studying them like farmers inspecting livestock. There was no malice in their gaze, only cold calculation. Sreth tried again, voice ragged. "This is madness. You can't fight the Empire." Baba Yaga crouched before him, her knees popping audibly. "Oh, we have no intention of fighting you head-on," she said sweetly. "We prefer adjustments." "Adjustments?" Sreth rasped. Carter leaned down, close enough for him to smell the clean leather of her jacket. "Every empire is built on fear, control, and belief. Crack the foundation, and the whole tower topples." She tapped his forehead lightly. "And it starts here." The prisoners shifted uneasily. One of the humans, a young woman with wild red hair, hoisted a device cobbled from alien tech and human ingenuity. She flipped a switch. The device thrummed, and the bindings around the prisoner's wrists deactivated, slumping uselessly to the ground. For a heartbeat, the Empire soldiers hesitated. Was it a trick? Baba Yaga smiled, the grandmotherly smile that had already haunted too many of their dreams. "You are free," she said. "Free to run. Free to tell your story. Free to spread fear." The soldiers exchanged glances, disbelief warring with instinct. Sreth scrambled to his feet, hesitating only long enough to snarl. "You'll regret this." Baba Yaga chuckled low in her throat. "We already do. Regret is a very human specialty." Without another word, the soldiers fled into the night, crashing through the trees toward whatever safety they believed still existed. Behind them, the humans made no effort to pursue. Their work was already done. Carter watched the retreating backs, then turned to Baba Yaga. "Won't they just call in reinforcements?" Baba Yaga's smile faded into something colder. "Of course. That's the point." High above in orbit, a second Empire vessel approached, larger, better armed. The Pride of Ascendancy. It bristled with weapons, its hull a gleaming testament to Imperial dominance. Inside, Admiral Korvac, a creature of stone and iron, watched the sensor data with grim satisfaction. "Prepare ground assault teams," he ordered. "We will purge this infestation." On the forest floor, hidden from the ship's sensors, Baba Yaga oversaw final preparations. EMP mines, masked from orbital scans, were buried at strategic points. Signal jammers, disguised as local flora, were activated. Trap after trap, all set by smiling humans moving as quietly as mist. "Let them land," Baba Yaga said. "Let them feel powerful." Carter checked the old pistol at her hip, a relic from Earth's 20th century, lovingly maintained. "Any final words of wisdom, ma'am?" Baba Yaga's eyes gleamed. "Be polite. Be efficient. And have a plan to ruin every nice thing they try to do." The assault teams from the Pride of Ascendancy landed with mechanical precision, deploying armored walkers and infantry drones. They moved through the forest in tight formations, scanners sweeping, weapons hot. They found nothing. No resistance. No battle lines. Just empty woods and the faint sound of something humming. The first walker triggered an EMP mine. The blast rippled outward, shorting circuits, frying optics, turning the Empire's finest machines into expensive paperweights. The soldiers barely had time to react before the humans struck. Not with lasers or plasma, but with bows. With slings. With Molotov cocktails made from alien fuel cells. The forest turned into a roaring, shrieking nightmare. The Empire soldiers fought valiantly, but they were trained for battlefield honor, not guerrilla ambushes. They fired at shadows, wasted ammunition on ghost targets. Every loss was met with another cheerful human message over hacked comms. Thanks for playing. Please enjoy this complimentary loss. And another. Oops. Looks like you stepped into another handcrafted Earth experience. Within hours, the mighty ground assault team was shattered. Survivors fled back to their landing zones, only to find the dropship sabotaged, critical systems missing, engines melted into slag. Atop a shattered walker, Carter stood, megaphone in hand. "You were warned," she called out. "We are not prey. We are not subjects." She raised a battered Terran flag, stitched hastily from salvaged ship banners. "We are Earth. And we bite." On board the Pride of Ascendancy, Admiral Korvac howled in fury, slamming a fist into the control console. "They mock us!" he roared. From the bridge speakers, Baba Yaga's voice drifted like smoke. "Why, Admiral?" she said sweetly. "We would never mock such a fine opponent. That would be rude." The Pride of Ascendancy's communications officer paled. "They've hacked our main channels." Korvac trembled with rage. Another message blinked onto the main screen. "Smile for the camera." Outside the viewport, tiny glints appeared. Human-made satellites, cobbled from scrap, drifting into formation. They activated. Blinding pulses of light seared into the Pride's optical sensors, scrambling targeting systems. At the same time, the main engines reported critical failures. Saboteurs had already infiltrated the maintenance tunnels before the ship ever landed troops. Earth's trap had been meticulous. And now it was springing shut. Korvac slumped into his chair, stunned. They hadn't fought an army. They had fought an idea. A people who smiled while they planted knives. A species that shook your hand while calculating where best to bury you. Baba Yaga's final message echoed through the crippled ship as Earth forces swarmed up from the planet below. "Thank you for participating in Earth's first official welcome party. Please collect your dignity at the nearest exit. Assuming you can find it." In the heart of the forest, Carter stood beside Baba Yaga, watching the bright flames flickering against the dark sky. She nudged the old woman lightly. "What's next?" Baba Yaga's smile was slow, satisfied, and terrifying. "Now, child," she said, "we invite the rest of the galaxy to dance." Above them, distant stars shimmered. And in their cold light, Earth's trap only grew wider. Smoke twisted into the sky from the shattered remains of the Pride of Ascendancy. The massive warship, once the terror of half a sector, now lay broken and bleeding into the upper atmosphere, slowly descending into its own grave. The humans watched it fall without celebration. There was no need. Victory, when inevitable, needed no applause. On the forest floor, the captured Empire soldiers knelt once again under human guard, their heads bowed, not in forced subservience but in something darker, acceptance. The humans ringed them in loose circles, their faces calm, their weapons relaxed at their sides, like a jury already certain of the verdict. Baba Yaga approached slowly, her cloak trailing behind her, collecting dust and ash in its folds. The lines of her face were more pronounced under the cold starlight, her pale eyes reflecting the flames that danced across the wreckage. She moved like time itself, steady, indifferent, inevitable. Carter walked beside her, limping slightly but upright, her face an unreadable mask. No traces of humor touched her features now. The woman who had once cracked jokes and subtle insults now radiated the same dangerous serenity as her mentor. The two stopped before the prisoners. For a long time, Baba Yaga said nothing. Silence pressed down, thick and smothering. Even the insects of the forest held their breath. Finally, she spoke. "You were sent to conquer," she said, her voice soft, almost sad. "To classify, to dominate, to cage." She moved among them slowly, her hands clasped behind her back. "And you thought that we, because we smiled, because we sang songs and built our houses of wood instead of iron, you thought we were lambs." Her eyes gleamed as she bent down to meet the gaze of a captured officer. "We are not lambs," she whispered. "We are shepherds. And we have very sharp crooks. There was a strangled noise from among the prisoners, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. Baba Yaga rose, brushing dust from her knees. "You are going home," she said. Mutters broke out among the Empire soldiers. Disbelief. Hope. Baba Yaga let it boil for a moment before adding, almost idly, "You will carry a message." The hope dimmed. "You will tell your masters what you have seen. You will tell them that Earth is no longer a quiet corner of the galaxy." She pointed a thin, accusing finger at the sky. "You will tell them we are awake." One of the prisoners, a grizzled captain whose name Carter hadn't bothered to learn, managed to summon enough courage to raise his chin. "And if we refuse?" he rasped. Baba Yaga smiled that terrible, grandmotherly smile. "Then," she said sweetly, "we will come visit, unannounced." The humans around her chuckled, low, dry sounds that held no real amusement. From the wreckage of the Pride, a single escape pod was salvaged, repaired just enough to survive re-entry to a jump point. The prisoners were herded toward it, their bonds released one by one, their dignity stripped but their lives, barely intact. As the pod sealed and roared skyward, Baba Yaga and Carter stood together, watching its ascent. "You think they'll deliver the message correctly?" Carter asked. Baba Yaga shrugged. "Fear translates easily." Carter chuckled without humor. "True enough." The humans began to move, packing their equipment with military efficiency. They were already preparing for the next step, the next phase. This had only been the invitation. Above, in the sterile corridors of Empire space, the surviving prisoners were whisked into quarantine. Their words were recorded, analyzed, dissected. The officials who listened to the reports paled. Empires did not fear primitives. Empires feared anomalies. Variables that didn't fit into neat, predicted boxes. And Earth, it turned out, was not a planet. It was a loaded gun pointed at the heart of the galaxy. In a high council meeting deep within the Empire's homeworld, admirals, ministers, and strategists screamed at each other across a table of holograms and dossiers. Some demanded retaliation. Some pleaded for negotiation. One small, tired diplomat simply said, "We never should have gone there." Across the black oceans of space, Earth waited. Not with fleets. Not with banners. With smiles. With patience. With plans woven into every word, every handshake, every polite nod. In the ruined forest, Baba Yaga sat on a fallen log, her joints creaking as she lowered herself. Carter sat beside her, stretching her wounded arm carefully. "Think they'll come back soon?" Carter asked, her voice casual. "They will," Baba Yaga said. "Not with troops. With diplomats. And when they do? We smile wider." Carter laughed softly. "And hide the knives a little better." The old woman nodded, reaching into her cloak to produce a battered thermos. She unscrewed the cap and offered it to Carter. Inside was a thick, bitter coffee, brewed over open flame. Carter accepted it with a grin, sipping carefully. "Tastes like victory." "No," Baba Yaga corrected gently. "It tastes like preparation." Far beyond Earth's orbit, transmissions bounced between clandestine Earth satellites, carried by repurposed Empire tech. Words hidden in static. Promises hidden in lullabies. Humans were contacting others. Not pleading. Recruiting. There were others out there, species suppressed under the Empire's boot. Species who needed only a spark. Earth offered fire. The children of Earth, so recently dismissed as backward and quaint, now whispered into the ears of rebels and revolutionaries. "Do you want to be free? We can show you how. It starts with a smile." Back on Earth, Carter leaned back, staring up at the infinite sprawl of stars. "Did you ever think it would be this big?" she asked. Baba Yaga chuckled, a sound like leaves rustling in a storm. "I thought it would be bigger." The old woman's gaze turned serious, and for the first time since the battle, Carter saw the weight she carried. Not fear, but inevitability. "They have woken us," Baba Yaga said. "And now they must understand." "Understand what?" Carter asked. Baba Yaga's voice was almost tender. That humans are not special because we conquer. We are special because we endure. A silence stretched between them. In every dark corner of history, Baba Yaga continued, there is a human who smiled, offered peace, and prepared for war. It is our nature. We welcome strangers. We give gifts. We sing songs. She smiled, that soft, terrible smile. And if we are betrayed, we become something the universe has never been ready for. Carter tilted her head back, thinking of the battles to come, of the first emissaries who would land, bearing flags of peace but fear in their hearts, of the councils where human delegates would sit, smiling, polite, offering small trades, while assessing every weakness, of the first time Earth would raise its hand, not in greeting, but in judgment. Do you think they'll ever understand us? Carter asked. Baba Yaga rose slowly, brushing ash from her cloak. They don't have to, she said. From the edge of the trees, other humans approached, scouts, engineers, linguists. All waiting. All ready. Report, Baba Yaga said. A young scout, dust-streaked and grinning, saluted. First batch of prisoners dropped their coordinates before launch. Their homeworld is compiling evacuation plans. They think we're invading. Baba Yaga's eyebrows lifted slightly. How very flattering, she murmured. They're offering tribute, the scout added, barely able to keep the amusement from his voice. Gold. Art. Political prisoners. They think if they bribe us, we'll go away. Carter laughed out loud, the sound rich and full. Poor bastards, she said. They still think this is about stuff. Baba Yaga's eyes gleamed like polished stones. This is about memory, she said. About debt. She looked up at the stars, her voice carried by the wind. They hurt us once. Now we teach them to respect the lessons. Carter tossed the now empty thermos aside and stood, flexing her sore muscles. Well, she said. Time to plan the welcome party. Baba Yaga smiled. Yes, child, she said. Time to set the table. Together, they walked into the darkness, flanked by soldiers who smiled like saints and thought like devils. Behind them, Earth turned slowly under the stars, no longer hidden, no longer silent. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited. It had always thought itself vast, powerful, unassailable. It had never known what happened when humanity truly paid attention. The galaxy was about to learn. And it would not soon forget. In the depths of the wreckage, a small beacon, jerry-rigged from human ingenuity and alien arrogance, blinked to life. A simple message, broadcast across every major empire frequency. Impossible to trace, impossible to stop. Earth welcomes you. Come visit. Stay a while. The signal repeated, endlessly polite. And somewhere, in the heart of that vast and ancient empire, an emperor dreamed of smiles turned sharp and warm hands turned deadly. The lesson had begun.